feel the kicking.
In life, you got to make hard decisions. It's kill or be killed. The old and the weak are doomed. All manner of scum and sickly minds and dirty bodies and cockroaches doing everything in their power to rob the white man of what he's earned. Finger on the trigger. Now, shoot her. Shoot her!
Wolfenstein 3D played such a huge role in the first-person shooter genre back in the early 90s. That game really pushed boundaries for not just its genre, but for video games in general. Fast forward to now, with a slew of mindless first-person cash grabs, and I don't really think it's a surprise that this franchise got rebooted just 3 years ago. And while I think the first game in the series, The New Order, did a pretty solid job bringing back Wolfenstein to the modern era, its sequel, The New Colossus, unfortunately is a hit or miss. Now bear with me, this is such a conflicting game for me. Let's start with the story first.
It's you. Take this. They're looking for you.
This game picks up immediately after the events of the first one. If you haven't played the first game, you'll be able to follow the events here quite well, but be prepared for the way Wolfenstein tells it. Now this is a real highlight for me. This game's story is grounded and gruesome, but also campy with some over-the-top elements, and they just somehow make it work. I mean, you literally start this game in a wheelchair while shooting Nazis in a stolen Nazi U-boat. You're wheeling down stairs, getting flipped off conveyor belts, all while simultaneously trying your best to dome every Nazi you see, and it just works brilliantly. All the characters here are pretty likable, and they're voice acted really well. They all feel grounded, but at the same time a little nutty and fun, which really helps the story out a lot. The best thing to compare it to would be like a Quentin Tarantino movie in that regard. Blazkowicz is the real highlight, as he should be. Care for him and you want him to succeed, especially in the first half of this game. Every time he gives one of his monologues, he delivers them really well, and they really grab your attention each time.
Frau Angle, you're hunting me. Got that backwards, lady. I'm hunting you. Back in the saddle, old man. Ignore the pain.
The overall pacing for this game, in terms of its narrative, in terms of its characters, is pretty excellent. For the first half anyways. Now here's where some of the negatives come in. This game starts off really strongly, but after the second half hits, and you'll know when the second half hits, something just changes. The story is still pretty solid, the characters are voiced just as good, but the writing itself, overall, felt unfocused at times. The balance the game had tonally in its first half is super well done, and it just falls apart in the second half, and you really feel it, and it really shows. The main villain in this game, Frau Angle, gets such a strong opener to her character. I mean, she is seriously nutty. But right after that second half hits, her character just kind of gets dropped, which is a real shame. The ending is rather underwhelming, and it just doesn't feel as earned as it should have been. It also ends in a cliffhanger, which is fucked. The game is even shorter than the first one. It barely took me 8 hours to beat this game, and that was with doing some of the side missions, which are all pretty pointless and boring anyways. You get no rewards for doing them, and you have to do this shitty poopy fart minigame to even do them. So all in all, the narrative, the pacing of this game is great in the first half. The second half is very underwhelming and pretty disappointing. Let's move on to the gameplay. This is the game's saving grace, and I really mean that. The gunplay here is so satisfying. Each gun sounds impactful. The weapon variety is pretty solid too, with some guns even having an alternate kind of fire. Each weapon can also be upgraded, and each upgrade is actually felt and seen right away. But just like with the story, there are problems. The stealth mechanics. Why the fuck is this even here? Okay, it just feels shoehorned and unpolished. You make one mistake, and the entire room will be on alert and know exactly where you are and where you are planning to go. Thankfully, this isn't as big of a deal since the gunplay is so top notch. It just hurts the overall quality of the gameplay mechanics. Why have a stealth option if it's so poorly done? The violence and brutality this game allows also really helps amplify the gameplay. You're blowing off Nazi legs, chopping arms off, exploding heads, and even completely disintegrating people. And it's really well done and it works really well. Even though the gameplay is amazing, and the gore and the violence just makes everything so much more satisfying, the actual gameplay loop this game has is pretty mediocre. Here's how it works. You walk into a room. Ah, shit! There's an officer you need to kill. You try to sneak. Alright, that didn't work. Now the game is going to throw an endless supply of Nazis at you until you find the 1 or 2 officers in the area and kill them. Rinse and repeat this for about 8 hours and there you go. That is Wolfenstein the New Colossus. Now again, the gameplay is so good and so fast paced that it helps alleviate a lot of this, but it can still feel really repetitive at times. They throw a couple new weapons in the second half, but they're only a one-time use kind of thing for the level itself. All in all, the gameplay mechanics themselves really solid. The level design and the way the gameplay mechanics are incorporated are a little average. Let's move on to the presentation. This is probably the most consistent aspect of the game. The graphics, performance, and audio here are fantastic. Even with the level design themselves being rather repetitive, the screen is always filled with eye candy. The lighting in this game is fucking phenomenal. It felt like every level was introducing a new color that wasn't seen in the previous level. The animations are fluid and the gore in this game, like stated before, is really well done. Particle effects are everywhere and the environment can be damaged, but only to a certain extent, which I found kind of weird. Even the water in this game looks good. The frame rate is pretty much a stable 60 frames with minor dips here and there, but nothing to really detract from the experience or score. Overall, the presentation here is tip-top fuckity notch. And with all my time with the game, I didn't encounter a single game-breaking bug, or really a glitch in general. The verdict. This is hard. This game had a really strong start. It's just a real shame that it stumbled as much as it did in the later sections. I think I'm gonna have to plop this at a 7.5 out of 10. Now don't get me wrong, this is still a good game, and it had the potential to be amazing. It had the potential to be a 9, easy. It's still going to be my favorite shooter of 2017, and it will definitely still be in my top 10 list of this year. But with its short campaign length, and with its story and gameplay losing its pace in the second half, it's hard for me to rate this any higher. If you're a huge fan of first-person shooters, I think you'll have a blast with this. For anyone else, I think I'd probably wait for a sale, or you can go pick up Doom right now, which is a lot cheaper. Thanks for watching my review. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, let me know. This is my first review on the channel, so I'm still learning things here and there and whatnot, but I appreciate you for watching this if you did. Till next time.